Thanks for joining me for another episode of Mortality in Gaming. In this episode, I will continue my tips and tricks on traffic management for City Skylines. I do have every expansion installed, including the newest one, Mass Transit. Specifically in this episode, I will be covering residential traffic and how to manage it effectively and efficiently, while encouraging residents to leave their car keys at home and utilize your public transport network. An important thing to remember is you cannot remove traffic, you can only manage it effectively and efficiently. But just remember, if you enjoyed this video, like the video down below and subscribe to my channel for more gaming content. Traffic. There are only two types, or at least when everything is taken into consideration, that's what it boils down to. Residential traffic and industrial traffic. Technically, you can say there's a third, which is emergency vehicles, but their destination is fluid, it always changes to the situation presented. But if you can control the other two, it'll be just fine. So let's cover these two types of traffic before we go into detail about the specifics of residential traffic. Residential traffic, it's all the residents, they commute to work and they commute home from work, and finally, they'll commute for leisure. Industrial traffic, it commutes to businesses with demands for the goods, or it exports them or imports them, which commute directly to the business and back to the region. So let's dig into the topic of residential traffic. Your main two are the commuting to and from work. So in order to reduce it, you need to make it even more convenient for the residents to use your system and not commute to work in their own vehicle. So how do we solve this? Well, this one involves more than one system. Although it can be changed up for your personal preference, what works for me though, in my own opinion, the best is a combination of buses and metros. If you watched my previous video about industrial traffic, I stressed about the traffic not touching the roads over long distances, but for only local commutes. Just like freight trains, metros can accomplish this by utilizing their own network of tracks. In total, my cities will always consist of 3 networks minimum. One for industrial, specifically the freight train. One for residential, specifically the bus network. And finally, one for both, specifically the road and highway network. If you get to the point where you have a truly massive city, passenger trains will work wonders for those extreme distances, but to work efficiently, they will need their own network as well to not congest the freight train network. Unlike the freight train station, a metro station is very compact and can fit into a very tiny space. Each train alone can carry 180 residents at a time. Take note that residents will ride a metro as long as they need to get to their stop. So a full metro train can stop at a station and pick nobody up because no residents leave the metro train, creating no available space to pick up the new residents waiting. So look closely at each route to monitor if this is happening. If so, just increase the funding for the metro and more metro trains will be deployed per route. I always start the funding at minimum and work my way up until my residents' metro needs are fulfilled. I place a metro station in every sector of my city, the loops that run around the artery highway. I usually connect 4 through 6 metro stations in a loop. I always having one of those stations connecting to a station in an adjacent loop. This allows passengers to transfer loops and travel indefinitely underground to their destination. Now what I'm about to talk about is critical for your whole network, since this whole video is about not congesting your network. When you create a route for your metros, make sure your route is going specifically one way on the track and does not need to find a turnaround. You also want to create a route on the same loop going the opposite direction for maximum efficiency for the residents. Although this is optional, I color code all my routes, both metro and bus, so I can edit the routes if necessary. It also makes it very easy to find in a list of 100 routes. Not only does it cause extra time per run, increased chance of congestion, it also minimizes the efficiency of your network. I follow the rule of thumb as I don't go above 3 routes per station, but let me expand on that. Each loop has 2 trains minimum, one going each way. On the station that will connect 2 routes, you now have 4 trains. The moment 2 routes interconnect, there's a chance of congestion and slow down your whole system. The metro train's waiting for the other ones to move in or out of the station. But for 2 routes, it is very minimal. I sometimes will use 3 interconnected routes when they are close and have a high usage rate, or if I'm connecting a metro route from the other side of a body of water. The last one specifically to try to reduce the number of trains the resident must get on before reaching their destination. But you can't have metros everywhere. This is where the bus system comes into play. Each bus can carry 30 residents at a time. Take note that residents will ride a bus as long as they need to get to their stop. So a full bus can stop at a bus stop and not pick nobody up. so look closely at each route to monitor if this is happening. If so, just increase the funding for the buses, and more buses will be deployed per route. I always start funding at the minimum and work my way up until my residents' buses needs are fulfilled. Something else that works to our advantage though, if any of you out there are SimCity fans, their Sims did not like to walk any sort of distance at all, but in City Skylines, they're willing to walk a good distance. A rule of thumb I practice is that any bus routes I have never going on the main highway. When I say this, if you look at my loops, they come off from the main highway and form a loop highway. The loop highway is fine for buses to travel on, but they're off limits to the interchanges of the main highway to prevent congestion. I do not hold back when it comes to making routes for my buses. If a bus holds 30 people, then that's 30 less cars on the road. So in my highway loop off the artery highway with all its one-way roads, I can have anywhere from 2 to 6 bus routes for that small area. Although this is heavily dependent on how many one-way roads are out there and mapped, so they don't have any redundant traveling just to turn around. Although once in a while this might be the case with no alternative, just minimize the route so the bus does not interfere with the traffic, or minimal if at all possible. Because buses don't go over medium to long distances, and besides preventing congestion, it encourages the residents to utilize the metro system. This makes it even more convenient than driving across the map in their own car. One more thing, if you can financially support it in the policy window, you can make your public transportation free, and that encourages a lot of residents to utilize your public transportation system if they were paid. If you watched my previous video, Traffic Management and Traffic Management Industry, you should be well on your way to a congestion-free city. If not, I'll link them both at the end of this video for you guys to check out. So manage that city, keep your traffic flowing, and I'll see you next time.